is the importance of one, getting a team that will support you, since this journey will take a lot longer than you think it is to reach any milestone you have in mind. Like any projection you have initially, like you might think in terms of days or weeks or months, it will probably be years and it'll be longer than even what your wildest dreams are. So have a team that will stay with you through the end, since those people are the ones that will make the journey worth it, and the ones that will keep you there and make you not doubt yourself if things don't go according to plan. And I guess another piece of advice is try to do as much research as possible and understanding key parts of the process. Don't let your own excitement impede you from getting the knowledge you need to do well. And know that you won't have enough no matter how much you try, you're still going to make mistakes.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the CEO and founder of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. And if you ever need help with yours, just feel free to go to strategymeeting.com, and we're always here to help. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, and I'm worried I'm going to mess up his name, but I'm going to try my best. Goonja Brahari? I don't know. Give me a little help.
Gunjan Bhattarai.
All right. I'm going to call you Goonja as close as I'm going to get. So as a quick introduction to Goonja, so he's founded a company called Cure, which makes healthcare a bit more efficient and cheaper and updated with technology. Going back a little bit, so 2 weeks before, or he was 2 weeks before, I think he was, or a few weeks before he was graduating from high school, got in a car accident. I can't remember if that was high school or college, so that's why I'm stumbling a bit. But got in a car crash, and then ended up having some bills that racked up that was they didn't necessarily understand. There was a lot of bills. Was motivated to fix the system, and then over the next year and a half, built a team, researched how to improve the system, what to do. At the same time that they were building and researching, it was also a student in college. Got the business started while you're, I think, a freshman, and then continued to explore it during college. Still in college, but looking to graduate soon and go work on the business full time. So I think I got the most of that correct, other than I couldn't remember when the car crash happened. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Gunja.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
So I gave the brief introduction, and I couldn't remember the one point, so I'm sure you'll definitely correct me. But take us back a bit in time, kind of being in high school and how your journey got started.
Sure. So yeah, it was high school, but
all right, I was right, and then I'm like, well, I can't remember. It seemed like it was high school, but maybe I got it wrong. So all right, I got it right the first time.
Yeah, a long time ago. So basically, a few days before the last day of classes in high school, so I ended up in a car crash, like you said. It was pretty scary at the time because I'd never been in anything like it before. I went to the emergency room. Fortunately, nothing bad happened to me, minus a few cuts and scrapes, although I was pretty terrified. And obviously, when you end up in a horrible accident like that, you tend to fear for the worst. But I had really good doctors, and I got out in a few hours, and aside from my car getting totaled, almost nothing happened. The main issues that would come up was the fact that I ended up getting a really big bill in the mail a few weeks later. Couldn't understand any of it. It was written in all this jumbo medical jargon that I wasn't going to understand. And I had a lot of struggles in trying to figure out how to pay it between my summer job and whatever savings I had built up. So effectively, that entire experience in trying to get around the healthcare system and trying to negotiate down my medical bill, pay it off, kind of motivated me to try and fix the system.
So you got, and going back a little bit of the car crash, because I mean, it sounds like, hey, first of all, that's always a scary experience. Doesn't matter how much you've been driving or what you've done. Anytime you get in an accident, especially when you total the vehicle, it always shakes you up a bit. But so you get that, and sounds like, relatively unscathed, or at least no major injuries. You go into the emergency room, they fix you up, make sure you're doing okay. You don't have a concussion or no major serious injuries. You go home, and I think when we chatted a bit before, kind of you got that big bill, or you got that bill from the emergency room, and you have all these things you can't understand. It's very expensive. You're saying, hey, you just checked me out. I had a few bumps and bruises, but what is all of these things in the bill? Is that about right?
Yeah, you pretty much got the story down.
So then how did that, so now you have that experience and you're getting now back into, I assume you graduate from high school and you kind of get over that and you go out to college, but how did the idea, or how did you get going with now being able to, or going from high school to college and also saying, I think there's a business here, I want to start to look into that? Kind of give us an idea of how that all played out.
Well, I guess at the time I was starting to explore ways of things outside of the 9 to 5 job, just the type of thing you have when you explore things in the beginning of college. And then the idea of, well, this system is clearly broken. And I also had a big passion in high school for exploring the healthcare system, kind of from a policy perspective. So from those two things, I was like, well, why not just try to fix these things myself or with a team? And then that's when the idea of trying to create a business came up. And I guess all the research, all the exploration and development sort of came from there.
So you start to research it out, try to figure it out, and as well as balance it. And was the idea that, hey, when you had the experience, hey, I think I should start a business here, or just trying to understand it, or kind of how did you get into? Because there's a difference between, hey, you have a bad experience, or you have getting a bit shaken up, versus, hey, I'm going to go build a business out of that. So how did that idea evolve? Was you always entrepreneur oriented, or you thought it was a good opportunity, or you just kind of were curious about it and then you saw an opportunity? Kind of give us a bit of insight there.
I think entrepreneurship sort of gave a path for me to try and put my own ideas and work as best as I could to see what I could do to improve the system. I think like other approaches, like, I don't know, waiting for 10 years and potentially joining like a think tank or whatever to try and think of ideas, wasn't something that I really saw happening. And I felt that, well, obviously people have been talking about how the healthcare system is really broken and is only getting worse and worse cost-wise. So I was like, I don't think we can wait. I guess we got to figure out what we can do now. And I guess it was a combination of those two things that were like, all right, let's go build a business. And from there, yeah.
So now you said, okay, I kind of have an entrepreneur bent. I'm going to go build a business. Now you go off to school. And so you're studying full time as a college student, as well as trying to figure out the business. So how did you balance those, or how did you build a team? How did you figure it out? How did you start to build it? And how did you kind of balance studies and college along with the business?
Sure. So effectively, I try to align the two whenever possible. Maybe not overtly, but it kind of sort of happened that way. So like I study both computer science and business, and so the two of them tend to really align together when you're trying to think of solutions for healthcare. Business, I'm sure it's self-evident, but in computer science, the fact that healthcare technology tends to be really outdated, and the fact that we don't really have those types of apps that simplify or explain things and make the system easy that you might see in other things. There's no Uber for healthcare or anything like an Airbnb or things that we use that are simple, cheap, efficient. Healthcare is really the opposite of that. And traditionally, technology has been used to sort of fix those problems. So understanding how tech and how computer science works is kind of, was in my view, a key step to be able to try and improve the healthcare system. And in terms of like getting other people on the team, I look for people that I knew from high school, people I met in college, people I was friends with, pretty much the way how we tend to see co-founders combined together, at least from what I've heard in the stories. So I guess that's pretty much how it worked out. And pretty much I just tried to align the two, and it just so happened that the two had a lot to share.
So now as you're getting that kicked off, how did you figure out how to build a business, right? Or did you have experience where you guys kind of get the group together, you have the idea together? Now, how did you go about building that, or making the company from base, or taking that kind of research, that concept and idea, and actually implementing it?
Sure. So none of us had any previous business experience beforehand, but that just meant we were going to have to do a lot of research. I was reading books. There's lots of great stuff to learn about. You can read up on the internet. I took a few classes at my school, and those had some information on entrepreneurship, although maybe not as much as I would like. Those are some ways, I guess, just experiencing things and just like diving in, making a lot of mistakes, and we did make a lot of mistakes, and trying to figure out what to do, and sort of going in blind approach were all ways that we tried to make things work. I'm sure there might be a better way to do things, but we were pretty young, and therefore we were just trying to do the best that we could.
No, no, and I definitely, it doesn't matter how old you are, how much experience you are, how much education. I think every time you go into a startup, there are things that you don't necessarily know and things you learn along the way and pivots and adjustments that have to be made. So definitely a bit par for course. Now, so you guys get into that, and it remind me, and I can't remember when we talked before, how long does it have you guys launched? How long have you been launched? How long did it take you to build, and kind of how did you manage all that?
So we took us a few months originally to build and launch last April. We launched a product. The problem is we kind of made a mistake and basically made a product that could only be used by customers we could never hope to reach. And with that type of mistake, we realized, okay, we got to go fix this. And so it took us maybe about most of the rest of the year between April and the end of February to launch a new product that we felt fixed those issues. So now we're just trying to commercialize, sort of like advertise our newest product and sort of get that out now that we've fixed the main problems that would have otherwise made it unviable.
Mm. So, and one question on that, because you say kind of, hey, we were selling it to a market that they were never going to purchase it, so to speak. How did you? I guess two questions. How did you miss that? And I get that there's an easy way to miss that, but just get a little bit of your insight. How did you necessarily miss out when you originally were launching, and how did you realize you missed it and pivot on things?
Sure. So our mistake was that our product was really only usable by really large companies. Think Fortune 500, Amazon, Walmart's, I guess Verizon, those types of things. Obviously, as a startup, we don't really have much ability to reach them. What I think our mistake was is the fact we were being really naive and not realizing that, one, startups have trouble selling to really large enterprises, but also two, those types of selling to enterprises are a really slow and difficult process where, yeah, it might take like a year, 18 months. And I think that never having immediate previous experience in like business to business sales, we really underestimated the amount of time, the amount of effort, the amount of contacts, all the things that are needed to be able to successfully do B2B sales in an enterprise setting. So you were like, so we didn't realize that until like after we had launched last April, and then we're like, oh, okay, this was a really big mistake. And then from there, we're like, okay, the easiest way to sell to are like other startups or like smaller companies. And from there, we tried fixing our product to be able to reach that audience, which we would have a much better time going to.
So now, and I definitely, it's interesting how sometimes you get so focused on the product that you don't necessarily, and you don't necessarily think of the market or how you're going to sell it, and or you think, okay, we can figure this out, and then when you actually get in, start selling it, trying to hit the market, you say, wait a minute, we either miss a mark or we're going to have to refigure out how to tackle this or any number of things. And so I definitely understand how you make that mistake, but I think it's also great that you guys learned that you had to make that, or how to pivot, how to adjust, and how to actually find a market that lines up with your business model that you can sell to. So you make that pivot, you make that adjustment, and then I assume that you guys kind of relaunched at that point, hitting the different target market?
Yeah, we relaunched about a few weeks ago, and from there we've just been sending out ads and trying to have trying to reach out to customers, just the really early stages of like a competent sales process. So we've been going through that. Probably will take us a few months to get a sale, just normal sort of SMB enterprise sales. So we'll be looking forward to that and seeing how it goes.
Definitely makes sense. So now, so early on, as you've just started to launch, how has that gone so far, or how is any early indications? Was it a worthwhile pivot? You excited? Too early to tell? Not going well, and you're looking at how to pivot, or kind of any early indications based on the initial launch?
I think that we started to realize that our strategy wasn't all that effective in that. So originally we were sort of around like April of last year, we're like, all right, we were sort of pursuing venture capital as a route pretty early, but we were like, all right, every single successful startup kind of runs on venture capital. And like, you see all those splashy press releases. And I guess we kind of like got obsessed with that. So we started trying to reach out to venture capitals. Firms had someone give us intros to do it, and we talked with a few of them. The round didn't go successfully, and I think from there, when we started to realize, when starting to pitch our product as like a thing to invest in, we started to realize these types of problems in particular, and the fact that we didn't really get much traction with venture capitalists beyond, say, an initial meeting or two. pretty much made us realize, okay, we do have a problem. And then we sort of got motivated to, one, how do we fix this to accurately target the right customer? And two, how do we do this without pretty much putting a giant amount of venture capital as like a prerequisite for the plan, since that wasn't going to work out. And I guess we started to really embrace the bootstrapping part of startups from there.
So no, and I think that, it sounds like a lot of lessons learned along the journey, a lot of, things that pivots to be made, things to understand, and definitely a lot of good lessons, and an exciting time as you guys are relaunching and starting to look to acquire customers. Well, that kind of brings us up into today. Now, kind of looking a bit forward looking, kind of looking to the next, 6 to 12 months, kind of where do you see things going and how do you see things playing out over the next 6 to 12 months? What's that roadmap looking like?
Sure. So obviously in the next 6 or a little bit more months, we would hope to get our first few customers. And I guess we would like to improve our platform somewhat to try and save healthcare costs more, make things simpler. It's the usual type of software updates you see on like your phones or in apps, that sort of thing. We'd like to do that, maybe launch a new complementary product, just sort of those sort of things, just like growth in general, trying to get more customers, but also trying to improve our product and build toward our original mission of trying to improve the healthcare system such that if you do end up in an emergency like I did 3 years ago, you won't be completely bewildered and confused, and you wouldn't have to worry about anything when you get home. I guess that's part of the end goal there.
All right. Well, sounds like an exciting path ahead, and definitely plenty to keep an eye on. So, well, as we kind of now have got, brought things up to where your journey's at today, and kind of looking a bit in the future, it's kind of a natural transition. We'll go hit on the couple of questions I always ask at the end of each podcast. So, first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
I guess the worst business decision I made was effectively not doing enough research on sales to begin with. I think I already talked about how not realizing that targeting enterprise customers wasn't really that viable. And I think we just wasted almost an entire year because we didn't really focus upon who our best possible customer was, who we could reach feasibly. And I think that lack of research, particularly on my side, ended up really pushing us behind. And I think that would probably be my worst business decision.
No, it definitely makes sense. But, as we kind of chatted about before, I think while it's, one that you look back and said, oh, well, how could we miss that? Or, why did, that's one that I wish we hadn't done. One, it helps you to learn, okay, we do need to focus on who's the customer, how we're going to make the revenue, and we need to figure out how we're going to hit that market. But two, sometimes it recenters your product as well. It helps you to say, okay, is our product line up with our customers? Because sometimes that lines up well, and other times it just doesn't make sense or doesn't line up. So definitely a good mistake to learn from. So now the second question I'll hit on, which is, if you're talking out to someone that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
The one piece of advice I would probably give them is the importance of, one, getting a team that will support you, since this journey will take a lot longer than you think it is to reach any milestone you have in mind. Like any projection you have initially, like you might think in terms of days or weeks or months, it will probably be years, and it'll be longer than even what your wildest dreams are. So have a team that will stay with you through the end, since those people are the ones that will make the journey worth it, and the ones that will keep you there and make you not doubt yourself if things don't go according to plan. And I guess another piece of advice is try to do as much research as possible and understanding key parts of the process. Don't let your own excitement impede you from getting the knowledge you need to do well. And know that you won't have enough no matter how much you try, you're still going to make mistakes.
No, I think that last bit of, definitely do as much. You can build a team around, you can get everybody around, which is definitely important and worthwhile to pursue. But you're always going to make, no matter how good of a team, no how much you plan out and how much you think you have things figured out, you're always going to have that mistakes that you're going to make, because every good company makes them and every bad company makes, I guess, so every company. But you're also going to take those opportunities to learn, such that as you make the mistakes, you improve and make the company stronger. Well, as we wrap up, if people want to find out more about your business, they want to be a client, a customer, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out or find out more?
I guess my email would probably be the best approach. It would be my first name, Gunjan, ampersand, and then Cure Benefits, CUREBENEFITS .com. That would probably be the easiest way to reach me.
All right. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, find out more support, and use it as a great tool to be able to reduce a lot of your medical costs, your insurance, and medical costs, and making sure you stay healthy. So, well, thank you again for coming on. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you want to sign up to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to share your journey. Just go to inventiveguest.com. Also, two more things as listeners. One, if you ever as a listener, if make sure in your podcast player to click subscribe so you know when all of our awesome episodes come out, and two, leave us a review so new people can find out about us as well. Last but not least, if you ever need any help with your patents, trademarks, or anything else, feel free to go to strategymeeting.com. We're always here to help. Thank you again. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure, Gunja, and welcome, or wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, and hope the best for this podcast. I've had a great time.
All right, so now we just got done doing the bonus question. I have to make an apology. We were also have or we did the normal podcast. We have the bonus question. I've neglected to give Gunja a chance to ask the bonus question, which is an opportunity for him to be able to ask one of his top intellectual property question. So we're back here, and with my apologies, I'm going to turn it over to Gunja and let him turn the tables on me a bit and ask his number one intellectual property question. So with that, what's your question?
Sure. I guess one question that almost every tech founder is worried about is like the long time it takes to get a patent approved. So just say I invent something and then somebody, one of my competitors, invents the same thing 4 months later. We both like file for patents. How does that work when they're both filing for the exact same type of technology?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that it's typically difficult to file for the exact same technology. You can file for similar ones, but, everybody has a bit of a different variation, different ways they'll approach it. But in your scenario, let's say two people had the exact same idea 4 months apart, or they filed on patents 4 months apart. The way that the intellectual property patent system works is that it's the first person to file it's a first to invent system, or sorry, not a first to file system, where the first person that files first is presumptive the first inventor. So if you're the person that filed 4 months earlier than your competitor, it's presumed that you are the original inventor, and anybody that comes along, whether it's the next day or the next month or the next year, is going to hit into your patent application. They're not the original inventor because you filed first. And so on that sense, even though yes, both have been filed, they haven't been examined yet. Once they get into examination, yours would go through examination when the other's patent application would go through examination. As the examiner is looking at it, he would do a search within their internal database. Yours would pop up and they say, hey, this has already previously been filed on. It's already been an application prior to the other competitor's application was filed. And so then they would use your application as grounds for rejection. So in that sense, whoever files first is a presumptive inventor. They get the initial rights to it. Anybody that comes along after would infringe on that and wouldn't be able to get a patent on it. Now, the other thing you can hit on, and kind of maybe to piggyback off of that question that you had, is, the other question sometimes that pops up is, because it's a long system, how can I wait? Or is it, what do I do during the meantime? Meaning, on average, you're looking at 18 to 24 months by the time you file to get through the whole system. Hey, I'm out there in the marketplace, I'm building, I'm selling ones. If a competitor comes along during that period of time when I'm still patent pending, how do I deal with that? So the short answer is, until you get an issued patent, you're not able to actually go out and enforce it. Meaning they haven't determined patentability. They haven't said, yes, it's patentable, it's inventive. And so you're not able to go and stop others from doing it. You can send out cease and desist letters and let other people know, hey, we don't have an issued patent. However, we are pursuing one. Believable is going to issue a patent. Once it does, we intend on enforcing it against you. And so kind of give them a heads up, or put them on notice, so to speak. Once it issues, you are able to go back and basically capture that period of time while the patent was pending. So as part of enforcement, if you had to take them to court, or you're doing settlement agreements, or otherwise looking at, the damages, you can say, during the period of time that we were pending, then we can capture that time once a patent issue. So it's kind of a bit of a ability to look back and recapture that as well. So With that, I appreciate the bonus question. Apologize that I didn't capture it earlier, but it's a great question. I think one that definitely comes up. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up the podcast. Appreciate you again, Goonja, for coming on. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Likewise, and thanks so much for the opportunity.